my feed, well, not my feed, but scrolling through my posts that I make. But she did an interview lately, and I want to say it was with Ellen on the Ellen DeGeneres show. I could be wrong there, but I think it was with Ellen. But in her interview, Ronda Rousey talks about how she dealt with and had to overcome strong thoughts and feelings of suicide and being suicidal after her loss to Holly Holm. Which, if you know Ronda's story, it makes a lot of sense. It's not just anyone on the outside who's a Ronda hater or doesn't know Ronda would go, oh, that's just Ronda being a sore loser type of response, where I don't think anything could be farther from the truth. First and foremost, the absolute first thing you need to know about this in regards to Ronda Rousey is Ronda lost her father to suicide as a young girl. Her father committed suicide when she was younger. So having lost a parent to that particular form of death is a very important, element to understand and incorporate into how we process this year and how we interpret where Ronda's coming from. Another element that I think is key as well into understanding how Ronda could feel this way and, not just be a sore loser or whatever like haters would say, is that Ronda is a very big picture driven person. She's been motivated by her potential place in history and the impact that she can make on the world throughout her actions and her success in her endeavors. And part of that success always relied extremely heavily on her being unbeatable, on her being unquestionably the best female fighter of all time, and thus in the argument for one of the best fighters of all time, period, any gender, any weight. That's what, her ultimate motivation has always been. And that loss challenged her foundation of what she could accomplish and what her legacy and destiny was, following that defeat. And so having that entire, foundation of everything that your life's work is built upon, and your focus and your direction and your effort and your time and energy and all that stuff, everything that you're putting into what you're doing, to have that all, questioned, threatened, broken, and need to repair it, if you want to look at it that way. When you incorporate all those things, I think it's very reasonable to understand how any human being, under those circumstances, in that situation, could have those thoughts and feelings. She did go on to say that her boyfriend, I believe, is the reason she decided to, that she couldn't go that route, because one day she needs to make babies with him. That's, some people might think that's nice to hear. I, however, actually see a red flag in all of that personally when dealing with the topic of suicide. I think anytime you've got someone that is realistically capable and prone to doing said action, that you have to be really careful that at no point do they start living for a few specific people other than themselves, because in my humble opinion, that's just a no-win recipe. If you're that type of person that can do that, you need to be living for, one of two things: either A, no one / yourself only, or B, everybody. You can't just single out a couple people and go, that's who I'm going to live for. Because what happens then? What happens if something happens? What happens if things change with those couple people? Then, to place your purpose for being and existing on someone else's shoulders, I think is one of the most thoughtless, inconsiderate, cruel, selfish things a person could ever do. and it's completely counterproductive in terms of the big picture. So that was the one thing that I pulled out of that, where I still personally have a little bit of concern for her, just her well-being as a person, and not having that be her fate eventually someday. Because like I said, if you're the type of person who can do that and you're going to avoid that fate, you either need to be living for no one, yourself, or everyone, not just a few, in my opinion. But anyway, that's 2 weeks in a row that suicide comes up here on the show. Last week with Dave Mira actually, following through with it. And then this week with Ronda Rousey having to overcome the feelings and thoughts of that here recently in her experience. But so that's where Ronda finds herself in the news mostly this week, and I found it interesting, entertaining, and thought-provoking. If nothing else, possibly you did the same. Now, there is one other area that Ronda finds herself in the news lately, and this is going to lead into our Balls Deep thought of the day, and that is that Ronda is one of 3 cover girls this year on the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. That is right, the yearly Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition magazine is out and available now, and it has 3 cover girls, all with 3 separate cover photos. They don't share the cover together. They are 3 separate individual photos. Now, one of them being of, I want to say, Haley Clausen. She would be your stereotypical swimsuit cover model, blonde hair, ridiculous figure, young, just everything that you would stereotypically expect in the woman who is on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. However, I mentioned there are 2 other covers with 2 other women as well on them, and they are actually very unorthodox, unstereotypical, and I could not be a bigger fan of the decision to put these women on covers as well. And that would be Ronda Rousey, representing actual athletes who are also models and wearing, swimwear, as well as some painted-on swimsuits, which you can also see video footage and pictures of on my Facebook page. You're welcome, America. And then thirdly, we've got a woman of a rather large, curvaceous figure. She is a size 16. And I'm not saying that because like that. I don't say it like that because it's like, oh my gosh, how can you be a size 16? I'm saying that because it is unheard of for a woman who is that dress size to have the job opportunity of appearing on the cover of a Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, or walking down the runway, at a Victoria's Secret's fashion show being one of their angels, things like that. You don't see those opportunities out there for those types of models. So major kudos, props, and respect to Sports Illustrated, the magazine, for finally doing something to acknowledge and embrace the demand for a change in body type depiction, especially when it comes to females. So, again, kudos, Sports Illustrated. Great job, way to go. Now, where we go from here is we make the cover have more than one female and we incorporate multiple body types. Or we only have one cover and we make it a non-stereotypical body type. Like, that's the way to really shatter here, because I think the one argument that people could make to the contrary, that, well, it really ain't doing that much, is that there is still a cover featuring, the Barbie doll type of look, and that is also the most featured main, of the 3 covers, whereas the Ronda and the other one, I'm sorry, I don't know the woman's name. They're a little more obscure, a little more buried in the layout, and and things like that. So there is still room for improvement there. But all in all, I think we should be happy with the progress and the step towards what we want ideally. that was made here recently. Now, talking about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue brings us to our balls deep thought of the day. Now, it seems like every year around this time when the SI swimsuit edition comes out, that we have to listen to a couple idiots always bring up the question of whether or not the models in these swimsuit issues are in fact athletes themselves or not, due to the physical demands and rigors that are asked, of their bodies due to their profession. So, straightforward, simple enough, that is our balls deep thought of the day this week. Are swimsuit models athletes? And the answer is simple. Oh, hell no. Are you kidding me? Being a freaking model does not make you an athlete because you need to keep your body in a certain condition. Okay? Are you making the argument that personal trainers are athletes? They have a certain standard that they need to hold their body to and a physical condition they need to stay in? Are you making the argument that United States soldiers and military personnel are athletes because they certainly have a high physical standard that their bodies need to meet to perform their job? Are you making the argument that a firefighter is an athlete, or that a police officer is an athlete because they certainly need to be in good physical shape to perform all of their duties at a high level? No, these people aren't athletes. None of them are athletes. A firefighter's not an athlete. A cop's not an athlete. A soldier's not an athlete. A model is not an athlete. Just because there are elements of your person and elements of your job that you greatly benefit from if you are athletic does not make you an athlete. So, let's just, for once and for all, let's put a simple criteria in the definition of athlete that we can all agree upon, that will settle the argument once and for all, so that we don't need to have these stupid conversations year after year. And because I love you, I took it upon myself to take the liberty to come up with said definition that we can all agree upon for what is an athlete, what is not an athlete. And here it is. I'm going to lay it on you. From this point forward, for all of humanity, for all of time, okay? If you cannot, if you are remarkably unlikely to ever be physically injured performing your job, and or a physical injury would not prevent you from doing your job or hinder you from doing your job, then you are not an athlete. Can we agree on that? Fair enough, okay? A model, for example. You're not going to get injured modeling, okay, unless there's some freak accident. Playing football, you're going to get injured playing football. I don't care who you are. You play it long enough, you're going to get injured playing football. And vice versa. If you get an injury and then try to go out and play football, you cannot do it as well. If you get an injury and have to go lay on a beach or stand next to a rock, you can do that with a torn ACL. You can do that with a sprained ankle. You can do that with a dislocated shoulder. You can do that with a torn rotator cuff. If you are highly unlikely to ever get injured doing your job, and an injury is highly unlikely to prevent you from doing your job or impact how well you do your job, then you, my friend, are not an athlete. All right. Well, now that we have that settled, that is it, actually, for this week's show. Thank you again so much for tuning in here to episode 1 of our second year of weekly Balls Deep Sports Talks episodes. Whether you're listening on SoundCloud, YouTube, or my personal favorite, the all-free Spreaker app, Thank you for tuning in. As always, make sure to tune in